Hello everyone, Cliff here in the shed. You'll have to excuse me voice, I'm getting over a cold. I've had it for a couple of weeks. By the time this video finishes I should be well and truly over this cold, but for the time being you're going to have to put up with me croaky voice. This is a clock repair video tonight. I've got my clock repair out on tonight. When I was a clock repairer professionally, when I had my shop, it's hard to put a number on it, but customers would bring a clock or a watch for that matter in and put it on the counter. I'd ask them what was wrong with it, and probably 8 out of 10 customers would tell me that their spouse had overwound it. Now there's actually no such thing as overwinding a clock or a watch for that matter. It's a misnomer, which is quite understandable when you know a little bit about clocks. But what inevitably happens is a clock will be going fine, it will tick away, it will stop, someone will wind it right up and then it won't go, and whoever's responsible for that winding gets accused of overwinding it. To overwind a clock, to rip the end out of a mainspring in a clock, you'd probably have to get a pair of Stilsons on the key and turn it, and you'd probably break the key before you'd ever actually overwind it. One of the main reasons that people think it's been overwound is because it was going fine, then you wind it up, you wind it right up and it won't go. And probably 90% of the time that's because it was about to go anyway. And I'll just get some bits and try and show you what a lot of the time, obviously not always, but a lot of the time the problem is. Right, so I've got a clock plate, just one plate here, and one of the bigger wheels that go in a clock. Incidentally, if you're very new to this, cogs in watch and clockmaking are called wheels, and the other cog is called the pinion, but I'll go into that maybe later. I'll zoom in on these and I'll try and explain what happens. Okay, right, so this wheel fits into this hole in the plate and they spin. Now when the barrel of the clock, and that's the barrel with a mainspring in it, when they're wound up they've got an incredible amount of power on them, and this transfers itself pretty much one way up the train of the wheels and pinions in a clock, and we call the set of wheels and pinions in a clock the train. So this one fits into this hole. The barrel, when it's on there with a mainspring, is going to push onto that. That will then push onto the wheel that engages here, that will push onto the next one, etc. And it will push in one particular place, and eventually the hole that this axle goes into will slightly wear, and it will wear in an oval way. They're quite clear to see normally when they are worn, but they'll gradually wear. Now that'll happen maybe on just one or maybe on several, but eventually they'll wear enough for this wheel to be, obviously that's very exaggerated, but they'll go like that. They'll be off centre, they won't mesh properly with their next wheel, and consequently the clock will stop. And that is probably one of the main reasons that you get this misconception that a clock has been overwound. It's not been overwound, it was just packing up either the pivots, which are the ends of the axle that go into the holes in the plate I just showed you, either they wear, or the hole which becomes the bearing for the axle, that'll wear. Maybe more than one will wear. The wheels will move, they won't mesh properly, the clock will completely jam up. Now this clock here is a case in point. I mean, I don't do this professionally anymore, I haven't got the shop, This is a clock that's come from a friend of my wife's, a colleague of hers who she works with, and she's given it to my wife because her husband overwound it. And I suspect, although it could be any number of other things, but I suspect that when I get this apart, we'll find in there either there'll be damaged teeth that have jammed it up, or, like I've just explained, the holes in the plate will have worn to a point where it starts jamming up. But I'll get this out of the case now and get the movement out and try and get some close-ups and maybe try and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Right, well, here's the clock out of its case, and I've got another camera on it which I'm going to try and superimpose on there, but I've got this as fully wound as it will go. And there you can see the escape wheel passing through the pallets. So it's not jammed up there, so I presume there is something else wrong with this. We're going to have to strip it down and have a look at all the wheels and pinions in it. So getting back to it, my history of having this clock, it came to me, I set it up properly, put it on my kitchen table, and it went for just over a week. Fine and keeping reasonably good time. And then I was beginning to wonder whether the customer, my wife's friend, just didn't have it set up properly, that it was out of beat, and they just hadn't, they just knocked the pendulum or something when they were winding it. However, when I did wind it up fully, it wouldn't go, and it wasn't that it just wouldn't go, there was no power being released up here in the escape wheel. The escape wheel, which hopefully I'm showing again now, with that power going through it, which is in there, that's the last wheel in the train, and that is, it's called the escape wheel because that's where the power that's all built up within the train of the wheels is allowed to escape and tell you the time. Right, so the pallets which are in here, and hopefully I've got a picture on that. These are what move backwards and forwards. They are connected down here to where the pendulum sits. Power to escape through the clock in a controlled way, which is how they tell the time. So like I say, I fully wound this, it stopped working. That led me to believe, wrongly it appears in this case, that it was probably a pinion or a pivot hole problem. But now I'm leaning more towards some damaged teeth, and when they get lined up in a certain way, it stops the clock, and it can skip past that and it'll go again for quite some time until they line up again. So now I'm going to inspect the clock and then probably pull it to pieces and hopefully show you what the damage is. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking this bridge off, which is what holds the pallets in place. I've got a screwdriver in here through the spokes of the escape wheel to stop it flying off when I take this out, and then I'll let it go under a little bit of controlled pressure and see if I can see anything. So there's the pallets, that's the pallet arbor. And there's that's the pallet bridge with a suspension spring. These bits are either called bridges or cocks. If it's got two holes, it's a bridge, two or more holes. If it's got one hole that holds it in place, it's called a cock. I've got no idea why. So what I'm going to do now is remove this screwdriver which was holding, and I'm just going to let. Now that's interesting because this is fully wound and it's not going. Let me see if I can get this on my other camera. So that's the escape wheel, and that should really be spinning round now, like that. Now I wonder if I can let it go into this position till it stops again. It doesn't look like I can, so I'll have to have a look. So I've had a better look at the clock now, and I wouldn't say I'm feeling smug, but I think I was right in the first place, because having had a very good look at it and had a good look at all the wheels and pinions with the clock still assembled, hopefully I can superimpose my other camera on here, and this wheel here where my screwdriver's pointing now, that's the end of the pinion on the centre wheel, and I hope you can see that there's a huge amount of movement on that, and that is what's causing the problem. Perhaps if I try and focus on another pinion end, that one there, and if I put the screwdriver on that, I'm doing the same amount of pressure, whoops, you'll see that that didn't move at all. And what's interesting is that someone before me has put a little cross on here, so I suspect someone has noticed this before, or maybe it's just been rebushed before. But the job we've got to do now is take the clock completely to pieces and rebush. We'll have to look at the pinion as well, but we'll have to rebush this, basically this bearing in the clock. So before you do any work whatsoever on a clock, you have to let the power down. Can't stress that enough. Don't go around taking a clock to bits without making sure there is no power at all on the mainsprings. Because believe me, that way lies disaster. This is called a letdown tool. It comes with various key-sized steel tubes that fit into this handle, and basically you put that over there, take a firm grip of it, start to wind it so that you disengage this click, and then you can let the power down, let it sit through your hand slowly. Until all the power's off. And if you look in the clock now, you can see there's no power on the, this is the going train. This is a striking and chiming clock. It's got 3 trains, 3 winding holes, 3 barrels. You've got to let them all down, obviously. Now I'll do this one. All the power's off of that. Now this one I'm going to have to move this. I'm not going to risk breaking my wrist or the clock. And that's all the power off of that. So now we can start stripping the clock down. I won't video that, it's going to take me a while and it would be a bit boring. But I'll strip the clock down. Right, I've got the clock to pieces now, and hopefully I'm going to be able to record on my camera up here and superimpose this. This is the pinion, which I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. It's in pretty good condition, it's not bad at all. There's just bits of oil and crap on there. But here's the pivot hole in question, and it's been done before. Not very badly, but not brilliantly. But if I put the if I can line this up with the camera, I'll put the pivot back into the, find the right hole. Where is it? There it is. Right, I'll try and get that in focus on there. Right, hopefully you can see how oval that hole is. I mean, this actually looks like a ball bearing in there rolling about. But more importantly is the amount of movement this has got. And that's why it was stopping at certain times. So this pivot hole here, I've got a little tool I'll show you in a minute. We'll line that up, drill it out and make a new bush for it. Strange thing is as well with this clock, I don't know whether this is going to come up on here. Can you see that C there? 15/3/2018, 2018, and it looks like this was cleaned on the 15th of the 3rd, 2018, which it's only just over a year ago. 15 months. I've had it about 6 weeks waiting to do it, messing about a bit trying to figure out what's up. So I don't know whether this pivot was done then, and they've used something very soft or just made a very bad job of it. Anyway, we'll do it properly. Incidentally, I'll just put that on its, I've set the so here is the clock bits all laid out in their separate trains on the bench. They're not particularly dirty, but I'll be putting these all through the ultrasonic tank. Then I'll clean them, finish them off by hand, and that's when I do the major inspection. I've had a look at them as I've took them out. I can't see any major problems, but have a very good look at them when you're cleaning them, when you're doing the final hand cleaning of them before you reassemble it. But the important job to do now is to rebush this plate, and I use a special tool for that. But that'll be for another video. This one's already gone on long enough, I think. You're probably bored. So part 2 will be the tools I use and how I rebush a clock plate. See you in part 2. Bye for now.